A state lawmaker was accused of having a master key for all offices at the Capitol. Yet after an investigation determined that lawmaker did not, legislative leaders quietly changed their locks.
What really should have happened is every single lock should have gotten changed.
The state is suing a Mesa County deputy for violating state law to cooperate with ICE. The sheriff says his office isn't the only one doing it. If you're flying west from Denver, you're probably not the only one that's had a bumpy ride in the skies. Apparently, it's a trend.
She flew up, hit the ceiling, and then came down and landed on somebody, broke her ribs.
And a life-changing day and commitment for two Colorado Special Olympics athletes. All that and more tonight on Next. Legislative leadership in the State House quietly had their door locks changed after a lawmaker was investigated for having a master key. That investigation determined that the lawmaker did not, in fact, have a master key, and yet the top House Democrat and Republicans changed their locks. And our Marshall Zellinger heard from a handful of lawmakers who are finding out about the possible security concern from our own reporting.
Yeah, it works.
The key to Republican State Representative Matt Soper's office works.
Here, to unlock.
Both of his doors.
So it works the outer door to get in here.
Yeah.
And your specific door.
Oh, that's correct.
No other door.
No other door.
Soper said he complained to others in the Capitol earlier this year about arriving in the morning to find his windows open in his locked office.
I kept a thermometer in here. It would sometimes be as low as like 45, 50. I mean, it was cold.
You complained that someone was entering your office to open the windows and you didn't get a resolution out of it, basically?
No.
Earlier this week, we learned about an official investigation about one of his office mates, Republican State Representative Ron Weinberg, who was accused of having a master key that opened all doors. Weinberg denied having a master key. In this letter to Republican Minority Leader Rose Puglisi, Democratic House Speaker Julie McCluskey wrote there was no evidence to refute Weinberg's account. The very next day, the doors to McCluskey and Puglisi's offices were among 8 requests to be rekeyed.
If you're going to take care of a couple of members, you should take care of all the members. What really should have happened is every single lock should have gotten changed.
Why did the House Speaker have her door lock changed if there was no evidence to refute Weinberg's account? And why were all House members not told? She wouldn't tell me.
I take security concerns very seriously, but I won't comment on our response to security issues or our protocols or procedures.
In a text message, the top Republican, Puglisi, shared the same line. I am unable to comment on security matters.
Today's questions are about security. And if you can't talk about security matters, that means there was a security matter. And all the rank and file lawmakers I've talked with over the last couple of days knew nothing of it. Now, this is not to discount the other allegations we've been researching about State Representative Ron Weinberg. This was just clued off as part of the master key investigation when we learned that the door locks were changed of certain offices when other people didn't even know about the situation at all. Angeline.
Yeah, Marshall, makes you wonder if there should have been a master key in the first place, and really who's actually overseeing that master key, because we know that there is one.
Yeah, there's a master key that a clerk staffer has to help people get into any office in a pinch, I guess. And that's well known over the last decades, I'm sure, at the Capitol. I know part of the security matters are that master key is now housed in a different area than it used to be. And so that's something we didn't even know where it was in the first place. And now we don't know where it is anyways. But other lawmakers probably will find out about it. And it still exists. But it's there for a reason. I just don't have the full reason as to why it's out there. And if there's a new one, now that some door locks have been changed, does that mean there's a new master key that's out there?
Yeah, another question. Thanks so much, Marshall. The Mesa County Sheriff's Office is on the defensive after a deputy used a traffic stop to help ICE detain a 19-year-old student from Utah. That deputy is now being sued by the state's attorney general for using a group chat to tip off federal agents. The Mesa County Sheriff is now calling out other state agencies in that same group chat, including Colorado State Patrol. Back in June, Mesa County Deputy Alexander Swink pulled over 19-year-old Caroline Diaz-Gonçalves for following too closely, he says. After finding out that she was originally from Brazil, Swink sent her information in a signal chat involving several federal agencies. She was detained by ICE just after that traffic stop. Colorado's Attorney General is now suing Swink for violating a state law that restricts information sharing with ICE. The Mesa County Sheriff has since apologized to Diaz-Gonçalves, But he also says his office is not the only one potentially violating state law or who has in the past. In a statement released this week, the Mesa County Sheriff said that the group chat, quote, clearly shows Colorado State Patrol troopers engaging in conduct similar to Deputy Swinks. CSP says the investigation related to Diaz-Gonsalves prompted them to remove their patrol officers from that chat. Of course, this makes us wonder if and how many other incidents there are like this where personal information was shared with ICE in violation of state laws. We have asked CSP for an interview to ask. A federal judge has rejected a challenge of Colorado laws restricting protests outside abortion clinics. It's not the end of the road for anti-abortion advocates who have their sights set on heading to the Supreme Court. An activist from Denver describes herself as a sidewalk counselor and wants to hand out anti-abortion pamphlets and talk to patients as they enter clinics. She's challenging what we call buffer zone rules on the books in Denver and statewide that require protesters to stay 8 feet back from the entrance to clinics. But so far, she's been unlucky in court because the Supreme Court already upheld the buffer zone laws back in 2000. This week, a federal judge in Colorado ruled in favor of Colorado's law and said ultimately it's up to the Supreme Court to decide whether or not they want to overturn their very own precedent. Anti-abortion advocates like their chances in front of the Supreme Court if the case gets that far. The court now has a conservative majority, and Justice Clarence Thomas has already said he wants to reconsider some of these laws. If you've ever spilled your coffee on a flight to Denver, turns out you're not alone. Our region is well known for bumpy rides in the skies, so it should come as no surprise that Denver dominates a new list of most turbulent flight routes in the country. Our Evan Krugel shows us why.
Due to encountering extreme turbulence at 37,000 feet.
This was the scene at the Minneapolis airport last night after a flight from Salt Lake City had to be diverted after hitting severe turbulence over the Rocky Mountains.
For a brief moment, we thought we were going to die.
Joseph Carbone and his wife Jan were on that flight when it crossed into southwest Wyoming.
It was calm before that. It felt like we crashed into something.
25 people had to be hospitalized. And while outcomes like this are uncommon, turbulence in this area is not.
We see additional hazards flying when we're flying near mountains.
Chad Kendall is a former commercial pilot and was not surprised to see Denver at the top of the list from turbulence forecasting website Turbly of the bumpiest flight routes in the country. 4 out of the top 5 are in or out of the mile-high city.
It's the winds that are coming across the mountains. That turbulent atmosphere can extend for many, many miles, even beyond Denver. So that's why that's one of the hazards coming into Denver International Airport.
Chad says technology has allowed pilots to better prepare for turbulent skies. And he says airlines are much more likely to go around a storm than they were a few decades ago. But he says in certain situations, there's not much they can do to combat the winds near the Rockies.
We just happen to live in one of those areas, so we certainly have a lot of ingredients in the atmosphere around Denver International and the surrounding airports that can cause turbulence.
That's why Chad says passengers here should be especially mindful of that same old spiel you hear from pilots.
Cabin crew members are going to remain seated a little bit longer until they get higher in altitude away from the Denver metro area to ensure that if there's turbulence encountered, everybody is safe on the airplane.
Now, if you really hate turbulence, Chad says you should consider flying in the early morning or late evening. That's when the skies tend to be the smoothest around here. Angeline, you also may want to consider flying east instead of west. Every single flight route in that top 10 involves flights west of Denver.
It kind of makes sense, though, because I feel like when I'm flying into Denver, it's like on the way out, on the way in,
Right.
and then after you hit a certain point, it's smooth sailing.
Yeah.
But
Chad claims he's had a smooth landing in Denver. I don't believe it. I don't think I've ever had a smooth landing here. Of course, other parts of the country have turbulence as well, but if you're looking for those most turbulent flights, they all center right around the Rocky Mountain region.
you just got lucky living in Colorado.
Lucky us.
Thanks so much, Evan.
You bet.
CDOT is clearing out an oil rail yard, potentially to make room for the Denver Broncos. Now, here's one of the pieces of history, though, that some people are worried that is being lost in the demolition.
I would wish any moment like that for any parent.
And it's a day they won't forget, and one 2 Colorado Special Olympics athletes have been waiting and working for. That's next. If you ski or snowboard, you know the dread and the pain of I-70, wondering, is it going to close on that perfect snow day you're hoping for? Well, CDOT is installing something that they hope will help, a first-of-its-kind avalanche and rockfall net along Vail Pass. It took a helicopter to fly in all the equipment for the setup. It's a spot that traditionally has a lot of avalanches in the winter. The netting is being used to reduce the number of avalanches, and it will also reduce the number of times CDOT has to close I-70 for avalanche mitigation. That work can bring down a lot of snow and also keep I-70 closed for hours, something that CDOT says they're hoping to avoid.
Sometimes when we get a big slide, it'll run all the way across all 4 lanes of the interstate, and we'll have to spend, it could take 5 or 6 hours to clear that volume of snow. So this will help keep the roadway open more often in the wintertime, help reduce the number of closures.
The work is part of a larger project to improve safety along Vail Pass by straightening out some of the dangerous curves and adding a 3rd eastbound lane. CDOT will be working on the fence all summer to finish that avalanche net right in time for wintertime, hopefully. Today marks 49 years since one of Colorado's deadliest natural disasters, the Big Thompson Canyon flood. The storm brought 12 inches of rain in just 4 hours and killed 144 people and injured another 250. Property damage totaled more than $35 million at the time, and today that would add up to more than $100 million. Back then, there was not a good way to let people know what was coming. It's one of the reasons why national warning systems exist today, and thankfully those are still in place. We know that we've seen historic flooding across the country, even 50 years later. And Kathy, so thankful that we've been spared from some of this major flooding that we've seen across the country.
And we certainly have had a flash flood risk, Angeline, each day this week, and we've even issued weather impact alerts for the flash flood threat. Thankfully, many areas have missed out on the flooding rainfall, but tonight we're tracking severe weather with heavy rain, but also hail. And we're seeing those dark clouds in Douglas County and Elbert County this afternoon. We've been tracking rain on I-70 this afternoon as well, but all of the heavy thunderstorms this hour are north. And temperatures have been super comfortable today, running below average in the 70s and 80s. Dew point values showing an indication of how much moisture is available in the atmosphere for storms that will continue to be severe. This is a severe thunderstorm watch out until 9 o'clock. Fort Collins, Greeley, Fort Morgan up to Cheyenne. We've had multiple severe thunderstorm warnings already for hail-producing storms north of Boulder, with just gentle showers crossing into Denver. So those of you headed north are going to encounter thunder, lightning, and heavy flooding rain. This line of storms marching east has hail in it, but if you go south, it's flash flooding from slow-moving storms we're concerned about again in Westcliff, Canyon City, and Colorado Springs. Level 2 out of 5 for severe weather threat for the rest of the evening for areas north of Denver. We'll see this line of storms march quickly east of us, but a secondary line could come in to northern Colorado, so that severe thunderstorm watch is extended out through 9 o'clock. Comfortable temperatures here in the city. I think we're relatively dry for the rest of the night. Average high is 90. We'll get back to that number on Saturday. As a matter of fact, low 90s expected Sunday, but record high temperatures are forecast for the middle part of next week, which, Angeline, next week is the first full week of August.
Which is crazy. Feels like summer is almost gone. Thanks so much, Kathy. Burnham Yard has been the focus of a lot of attention recently. The Colorado Department of Transportation bought the property back in 2021 for a few projects that actually never panned out. Now there's speculation it could become the new home of the Denver Broncos. CDOT's getting the property ready for a sale by demolishing the buildings on the site, and history buffs are not happy about it.
Many people don't know of the history of Burnham Yard, but just because it's untold doesn't mean it's not hugely important. My name is John Deffenbaugh, President and CEO of Historic Denver. Historic Denver is a local nonprofit that works with communities to promote and protect the spaces and places that are important to them and that tell the story of their communities. Burnham Yard was a place where women and people of color were able to work during World War II, when they really weren't able to work in many other locations. Over my shoulder is the rubble of several buildings that were demolished by the state and by CDOT over the weekend. The previous locker room for women, the roundhouse office, and also that was used for locker rooms and changing facilities for people of color, all hugely important and all collectively told the story of what happened at this site at a really formulative time in the state and the country's history, and now all demolished. So without this collection of buildings to tell that story, it's still incredibly important, but it doesn't have the meaning and the context that it would have had these other buildings been retained. In this situation, the state is both the landowner and the gatekeeper, so they're really able to do what they like to the letter of the law, but just because you can do that doesn't mean you should do that.
Demolition of other buildings on the Burnham Yard site is ongoing, though Deffenbaugh tells us he expects the state to keep the locomotive shed, that big brick building that you can see from 8th Avenue. When we come back, it's not your typical college signing day. 2 Special Olympics athletes get their moment in the spotlight. Next. It was a big day for 2 Colorado athletes as they pledged to take their skills to the next level in college. For their friends and family, it was a celebration of years of hard work.
As you guys know, it's all about the athletes.
And so the signing day really is signifying an athlete who has graduated from one of our Unified Champion schools, moving into and partnering up with a college or community-based team. So we have 2 athletes that have graduated from high school. Towns graduated from Ponderosa High School. Brooklyn's graduated from East High School, and we are excited to see them sign with a college so that they can participate on their college Unified Champion schools teams.
You are an incredible young woman, and we know you'll do amazing things with your smart, sassy self at Regis. And we are so proud of you. He's represented Ponderosa in the best way possible, and we have big shoes to fill this year for Unified.
I invite Town and Brooklyn to please sign their letters of intent for Colorado College, the Southsiders, and Regis University.
I'm excited, I guess. This is my normal self.
You ride bikes?
Yeah, I'm doing a race this weekend. I have 2 races to do. 2 races.
I'm so excited.
She is my daughter. my amazing daughter. I would wish any moment like that for any parent, to have her get an opportunity like this. It's so special. It didn't come easy. I mean, she practices just as hard as anybody else. She was on the varsity swim team at East High School and took 3rd in state.
I love my friends of Unified, but it's my dream of heart, and my dad was too.
She just has so much love around her, and that's, I think, the thing that's most gratifying. It's beyond proud. Yeah, it's just happy.
Congratulations to both of those athletes. We're back with your feedback next. As you guys know, Kyle's been off all week, and I know when Kyle's here, you guys are so chatty. In fact, this is feedback that doesn't make it into the shows when Kyle's here that he doesn't have time to get to, so they give it to me to read. But you guys didn't send any feedback today. You guys are so chatty about his pocket squares, his smarts, his eyes. Guys, we want your feedback, even when it's not Kyle. We want to hear from you, so please send it in, okay, guys? I'm back with you tomorrow. This is your chance.